I'm back. Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 2010 Chevy Tahoe. Up front is a 5.3 liter V8, and down below is a 6-speed automatic transmission. This video is sponsored by CarMarshal.com. If you'd like to support the channel, click the link down in the description below. CarMarshal.com advertises for over 100,000 vehicles across the US. Let's get back to that 5.3 liter. It's not really an LS motor. The reason why these engines get a rap as an LS motor is because they're very, very similar. Some LS parts do transfer over. They're sort of kind of in the same LS family, but not quite. And honestly, if at your local car meet you see a 240SX with an LS swap, odds are it's actually one of these motors. But if you're looking to buy a Tahoe and don't care about that, then everything I just said is meaningless. So let's talk about what you would actually care about. Power, somewhere in the 300s. It puts out a good amount of power. The Tahoe can get out of its own way with the 5.3 liter. And it's a very tried and true, well-tested, well-thought-through engine. I mean, they've put this thing in so many different trucks and SUVs and vehicles that really, this engine has plenty of R&D, believe me. It does have cylinder deactivation, so I can actually go down to 4 cylinders while just cruising on the highway. It'll help out with gas mileage a little bit. And overall, it's a really solid, really bulletproof engine. I mean, it's here to do a good day's work and go home. You won't struggle with reliability. You won't struggle with anything weird or out of the ordinary. Like I mentioned, GM put this motor into so many different vehicles, especially so many different fleet vehicles, that they couldn't really afford to have the engine have issues. And so, it doesn't. Like I said, paired to it is a 6-speed automatic. Now, there was a 4-speed offered as well. Our tried and true, our trusty but rusty 4L60E was actually offered in this body style of Tahoe. But this is not that. This is the 6-speed. It's like the 6L something or other. Who really cares? Really, I don't have too many complaints about it. It shifts when I want it to. It doesn't shift when I don't want it to. And that's all I can ask for from a transmission like this. It can tow, it can haul, it can do it all. Last but not least, the Tahoe is 4-wheel drive, and we'll talk about how you can select that in a little bit. But let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have a bunch of different gauges. On the far left, I have my oil pressure and fuel. Then I have my tachometer, center left. Center right is my speedometer, and then I have battery voltage and coolant temperature. All basic stuff that you want to know, but down below the tachometer, I do get a bunch of information. GM is really good at giving you a lot of information, and that can all be worked from the buttons on the right. I'll cycle through some stuff here with some nice lo-fi jazz music. On the steering wheel, on the left, I do have my cruise control options set, resume, things like that. And then on the right, I do have my source, volume, track change, things like that. But I also have voice activation. So this car, this SUV really, does actually have Bluetooth. You can Bluetooth pair your phone to the audio system, but you can only do this through the voice commands. There's no button, there's no setting. You have to do it through voice commands. The 2012 Mazda Speed 3 was similar in this way, which is kind of annoying, kind of seems like an afterthought, kind of seems like they were about to put this thing out in 2010, and then they're like, wait, let's put Bluetooth into it. And so that was the easiest way to put the Bluetooth in without tearing the whole interior apart. To the left of me, I do have my headlight switches, dome light, things like that, but I also have my 4-wheel drive settings. So I can leave it in auto. That's what it's in right now. I can put it into 2 high or 4 high, and that's it. I actually don't get a 4 low setting. You can't really put it into 4 low. I know a lot of you hardcore off-road guys might miss that, but honestly, this thing is mostly used as a daily, something to get around, something that could haul a lot of people and or a lot of things. And so, you know, here in town, I mean, I don't expect to be using 4 low anytime soon here. But on the door, I do have my power mirrors, window switches, child locks, things like that. The driver's window is one touch down. It is not one touch back up, and the rears are not one touch anything. You have to fully touch them. I know. Ugh. In the center, I do have 2 vents, and then I have the radio. The radio's decent. This is the stock radio. I mean, you'll find this in every single GM vehicle in the 2000s. So it works. There's an aux in. There is a USB in the center console, so you could plug in the newest iPhone if you have a lightning cable, because Apple just likes making everything harder for us. But down below that, I have my climate controls. Nothing too crazy here. Very basic. There is dual zone, so your passenger can actually change or choose their own temperature, which is really nice for all of us with significant others that are always cold all the time. Then I do have a couple interesting buttons down below the climate controls. We do have pedal adjusters, which is very, very nice. I think this is an absolute necessity in a vehicle this large. If you are shorter, you can actually move the pedals closer to you, so you don't have to sit 2 inches away from the steering wheel, which is great. I mean, for safety reasons, this is absolutely awesome. To the right of that, I have my parking sensors on and off. Again, a great thing to toggle. If you're gonna off-road, if you're gonna park close to something, if you're doing something that the Tahoe might not understand why you're doing, if a computer system might not understand what you're doing, you can turn off the sensors. They won't beep at you. If you're like, I've got this, you wanna do it manual, you wanna do it like a man, then you can do that. Then I do have my traction control off, which is tempting given that it is snowy out, and I can put into 2-wheel drive, which does make it rear-wheel drive. The center console is massive. It can fit a rotisserie chicken in the center console. Please don't ask me how I know. The seats are nice and comfortable. They are leather. They are power 4-way. You can move them forward and back, up and down, but the lumbar support and then actually leaning back, those are mechanical. So it is sort of an interesting middle ground here of technology. Not memory, not heated, and that's okay. They do the job. Now, let's talk about the back seats. We'll hop in the back. I'm not going to crunch myself into the 3rd row for you guys, but this does have a 3rd row, and we'll talk about that now. All right, so we're in the back of the 2010 Chevy Tahoe, and right off the bat, I have 2 vents up here. Very nice. Some SUVs do forget about the rear passengers, and they just say, screw it. You can deal with the vents up front. Not the Tahoes. They've always been good about this, and I love that. Down below, I do have my own climate controls, so I can control what comes out of those vents. Very nice. And then I do have my own sort of radio. So I can actually tune to a different radio station, plug in headphones through an aux, and then listen to something else that the drivers are not listening to. This is great for road trips if you have kids. You know, if they want to listen to their Kids Bop or Baby Shark do, they can do that, and they're not going to annoy the ever-living crap out of the driver. And vice versa, if the driver wants to listen to their NPR, the kids can actually listen to something more relevant. So that is super nice, and I do get a 12-volt outlet below that and 2 little cup holders. I do have a center console here, just 2 cup holders, nothing crazy in there. I do have a center seat belt back here, so these are not captain's chairs. This is a bench seat, so I have 2 up front, 3 back here, and then 3 in the very back as well. So you can carry plenty of people in here. I'm not going to hop into the back row. It's folded up at the moment, but I will give you a little looky-loo. That's the folded up rear seats and then the cup holders. As you could probably tell, if you fold those seats back down, you're not going to have a whole lot of trunk room. That's where the Suburban is really going to sort of take over. If you do want a 3rd row and a trunk, look at the Suburban, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Now we got to talk about the looks. Now, I actually like the look of the Tahoe. I think this generation of Tahoe, Suburban, Silverado, Yukon, you know, whatever other vehicles were this sort of same design language, I think this is a really great generation and probably my favorite generation of Chevy vehicles. This sort of, I believe it's like 2007 to like 2013 sort of body style. I think they look absolutely great. And honestly, that is all due to a man named Wayne Cherry. Now, here's a photo of our lovely Wayne Cherry, and he is the man that you have to thank for this body style. But not only this body style, if you liked any GM truck, we're talking Silverado, we're talking Yukon, we're talking Sierra. If you liked any of those trucks or SUVs from 1995 to about 2015, you have Wayne Cherry to thank. So I think we owe him a bit of gratitude because I do think that this is the best looking generation of Chevy pickup trucks and SUVs. It's my own personal opinion, but I do owe him a little tip of the hat. Now, you can get a longer version of this called the Suburban, and literally it looks identical. They're kind of hard to pick out in a crowd, but they do have a longer wheelbase, so they get that third row as well as a giant trunk. You can kind of take out the rear seats in this one and have a giant trunk, but only 2 rows, or you can keep all 3 rows in and then you don't really have any trunk room. If you get the Suburban, you get the larger one. If you really need that room, you get a lot more space. So if you are shopping for something like this, definitely go check those out too. I have an older Suburban review I will link at the end of the video, but I do not have this body style Suburban filmed quite yet. But my final closing thoughts about this is that today, the day that I am filming this, which you can verify by the last 2 seconds of the video, I am filming this Tahoe on New Year's Day. It is January 1st, 2020. We haven't even been in this year for more than 15 hours. And so what that means is that this is a 2010, and that means it's exactly 10 years old. And so let's look at this through 10-year-old eyes. This vehicle is 10 years old, about 130 some odd thousand miles. And I have to say, this thing holds up, and honestly, it's a really great point for Chevy. Even though this is this is post bailout, 2010, they got bailed out in 2008. This is post bailout. This is kind of when Chevy and GM didn't have a whole lot of money. This was the year that they liquidated Pontiac, Hummer, Oldsmobile went away earlier, but Saturn. They liquidated all these companies so they can continue making vehicles like this. This was sort of a low point in GM's history, but I can't tell from where I'm sitting. I genuinely love this body style of Tahoe. And actually, this is, I don't know whose this is a random stranger. That's the older style, like Silverados, also designed by Wayne Cherry. This has become the Wayne Cherry appraisal video. But yeah, that's the older style in case you're wondering what they looked like. But I genuinely think these are massively comfortable. I have the leather seats. They drive pretty nice. The ride is a little bit harsher than what you'll find in modern SUVs. This is before magnetic ride was really a big part of Chevy's playbook. And so, okay, maybe the ride suffers a little bit, but other than that, I think this looks great. I still think it looks decently modern. Again, Wayne Cherry, my God, man knew how to style a vehicle. This was styled, I believe he designed it in 2003 or 2004 to be made in 2006. He called it, dude. This thing looks great. He pinpointed the future. Man's a genius. I think they look great. I think they're comfortable. They're plush. The 5.3 liter is very reliable. And if you got the flex fuel option, I mean, ethanol has become so much more accessible here. At least in my town, we've gotten a couple new ethanol pumps recently. And so if you can find one of these, if you're looking for a comfortable daily, something to haul, I fall in love with these Tahoes the more and more I see them and the more and more I drive them. I think they're just such quality vehicles that's really all I can say. I love these things. As of today, this is 10 years old. And honestly, I genuinely think that it still gives modern SUVs a slight run for their money. Maybe not in features. Doesn't have Apple CarPlay. Doesn't have heated seats. Sure, features have gotten better. But for just a quality SUV, you might be looking at the king of the hill. Well, huge thank you to Max for letting me take out his Tahoe. Max has been absolutely great. He's gotten me a handful of reviews over the years. And so I cannot appreciate you enough. Thank you so much, Max, for letting me take out your Tahoe. But thank you guys so much for watching. This is my first review back in 2020, and I am so excited to start filming reviews again. I have tons of cars lined up. I think you guys are really, really going to like them. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys. Aside from my soul.